traveling around a lot. I think he might travel more than me.
Nomad Capitalist.
The Nomad Capitalist.
The Nomad Capitalist.
There are no rational arguments to support the ideas which created this country.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
This is the future of freedom and opportunity. This is the Nomad Capitalist Report.
32 days until passport to freedom in Cancun. Hello, traders. My name is Andrew Henderson. This is the Nomad Capitalist Report. This is the show where we talk about offshore strategies for entrepreneurs and investors to grow and protect their wealth overseas using my 5 magic words. Go where you're treated best. Thank you for tuning in. Here we are, nomadcapitalist.com. So much going on over there. And as you may know, well over 1 million people every year, 1 million unique people go to that site, nomadcapitalist.com. So a lot of the resources you need are right there. But thank you for tuning into the radio show. Always great to have you. And I've got something very interesting today that I think you should pay very close attention to. I'm going to tell you about something that I have done. You all know this about me. And I'm going to tell you why now I think is a great time to get started. And this comes down to second residency. Not a second citizenship, but second residency. And it's funny, I've been talking to some of our Nomad Society members about this. And some of them are actually taking advantage of this great time to go out and get a second residency, and here's why. Right now, the financial media and all of the Wall Street banks, all of the profiteers, all of the big monetary figures are out there, and they are basically coronating the U.S. dollar, the new safe haven currency of the year, possibly even the decade. Now, you and I know that the U.S. dollar is not, it's got a lot of problems. And I, for one, am diversifying out of U.S. dollars. We're going to put out an article, I think this week, on all the different currency strategies that I'm going to be doing in 2015. But whether you or I like it or not, the U.S. dollar has been coronated as the currency to hold, at least for the foreseeable future, at least for probably the next year. Whether that is based in anything sound doesn't mean anything. The U.S. dollar right now is very strong, and some of these currencies in the emerging world are rather weak. Now, we talk about strategies you can use to get out of the U.S. dollar while still protecting yourself. Of course, a common one that people talk about is holding Hong Kong dollars. You can easily exchange U.S. dollars in and out of Hong Kong dollars, basically at spot. We exchanged, I think, like 20,000 U.S. dollars into Hong Kong dollars and paid about 13 or 14 bucks, if I remember correctly, just a couple days ago. So it's that easy, and the Hong Kong dollar is pegged basically to the U.S. dollar, right around 7.78. And so that's one good way to get some foreign currency exposure without exposing yourself to a lot of risk. But there are other foreign currencies that may bounce back that are, quite frankly, getting beaten up right now. A couple of them are actually in the toilet bowl. And one of those is the currency of where I am sitting right now, the Malaysian ringgit. I am here in Kuala Lumpur, and I have been watching, as I've been traveling over the last 2 months and as I've been spending time here in KL, I have been watching this ringgit just fall into the toilet. It has been quite something to watch. It wasn't that long ago that the ringgit made it up to basically 3-1 against the U.S. dollar. 3 ringgit for every U.S. dollar. 33, 34 cents. It even got a little bit better than that at one point, not that long ago. And when I came back here 5 months ago, 5.5 months ago now, it was trading right around 3.15, 3.12. And then over a couple months later, September, it was 3.21. And ever since then, the last 2 months, basically, the ringgit has fallen apart. It is now down. By the way, it's like a falling knife. Every time I turn around, it's lower. It's like 3.5 to 1 right now. And the reason for that, the reason that Malaysia is getting beaten up worse than a lot of these other Southeast Asian countries, is that Malaysia has oil. I'm sitting here not that far away from the world-famous Petronas Towers, the Twin Towers. Many of you may not know that Petronas is the state oil and gas company that now occupies all 176 floors of those buildings. The government oil company, they had to kick everybody else out of the Petronas Towers and kick all the other private market tenants over to Tower 3, to the smaller Tower 3, which has a great bar on the top of it, by the way. Called Marini's, but that's a different point. The state oil and gas company, they're crapping their pants over there right now across the street from me, because oil, of course, is also in the toilet. And Malaysia is being viewed as kind of this commodity currency, an oil currency. And, I mean, listen, the people who run Petronas are a bunch of stooges to begin with. This is not a real oil company. This is a welfare program for Malays. Well, if someone has to say it, it's true. There's no Chinese people working at Petronas. There's no Indians working over there. Very few. It's like any other government program. It's a cronyist operation. Everyone knows it. But Petronas is worried because the oil is in bad shape, and because of that, the currency is in the dumps. Now, here's why that's important, and here's why it's important for second residency. Besides the fact that I went to have lunch today, this Indian place, and it cost me like $2. Now that's cool, right? I mean, you can buy stuff much cheaper. Everything you buy is cheaper now. Everything's become downright cheap to where I can't even contain myself sometimes at how cheap stuff is. And this is not a show about how to live cheaply. We don't talk about how to live in Ecuador for $674 a month. That's a different show. But on top of just the fact that I think Malaysia is a great place to live in Asia. It's a civilized place, whether you're in KL, Penang. People speak English here in Kuala Lumpur. It's a great place for expats. I really think it's the hidden gem. But on top of the fact that things are very cheap now, you have also the residency program here, which has gotten much cheaper just in the last 30 to 60 days. And that residency program is the Malaysian My Second Home residency program. We've written about this before on nomadcapitalist.com, but let me explain to you how it works. It's very simple. You don't have to invest in stocks or bonds. You don't have to buy government debt. You don't have to invest in shares of a company. You don't have to start a company or employ anybody or rent office space or show that you've got some fantastic idea to cure cancer or breed pandas or white tigers. You don't need any of that. You just need some money that you can put in a bank account, give it a kiss, put it in the bank account, let it sit there for as long as you want to stay in Malaysia. It's basically a retirement visa. This is not a second citizenship visa. This is not the kind of visa that you would go, to Uruguay, for instance, and get, where you go to Uruguay, you put a couple grand in the bank, and then you just squat there for the next 4 or 5 years, and then hope that whatever judge you get assigned to after that period is going to reward you for having spent time in the country and become Uruguayan in spirit and bestow citizenship upon you. That's not what it is. Citizenship in Malaysia, you have to be here for 10 years of any 12-year period, and even then, this is Asia. People aren't handing out citizenships here by and large. But if you're just looking for a residency, if you want a legal residency, whether it's for tax purposes in your home country so that you can go and have a bona fide residence, whether it's just because you don't want to do the traveler thing and you just want to go and stay somewhere and not have to worry about doing visa runs, for whatever the case may be, Malaysia is I think, a great option to live and a great visa. And if you're under 50 years old, you have to put 300,000 ringgit in the bank. And I believe if you're 50 years or older, you need to put half that. And after a year, you can take half of that money out if you're going to spend it on childcare or education, if you're going to spend it on buying a house, if you're going to spend it on medical care. And Malaysia is actually one of the cheapest places in the world for medical care. I was just reading a medical tourism magazine on my recent flight to Qatar. And the prices here in Malaysia, it's like the cheapest place in the world for a nose job. Like 90% less than the land of the free. So you can take, so the money you put in the bank, it stays there for a year. You can take half of it out after a year if you've got a good reason in their mind. But you got to put the money in the bank, and you got to put it in the bank in ringgit. Okay, it's a whole special division. Like you'll go to certain banks here in Malaysia, and they'll have like an MM2H counter where basically you go and you apply for the MM2H visa. It's very, very, very easy. You don't need to hire anyone. You just come to Malaysia, you go, you take your paperwork, and you do it. And then when they approve you, and you get your health insurance, and you do all the simple things you need to do to get approved, and to actually get the visa in effect, then you have to go and you have to put your money in the bank. And you go to one of these, any Malaysian bank, CAMB, Maybank, any of them, the big local banks. And you put your money in ringgit, 300,000 ringgit or 150,000 ringgit. So if you're under 50 years old as I am, it's basically 85,000 US dollars right now. The ringgit is 3.49, 3.5 to 1. And that has gotten much, much cheaper just in the last month or two, as I said. Where when I first, just a couple months ago, was looking at this, it was like $92,000. Now it's down $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 from where it was just a few months ago. And while I don't recommend catching, as I say, a falling knife on this show, I always urge you to be cautious when it comes to things that are continually going down in value. I mean, the price of oil can't go to zero. Will the ringgit go to 4 to 1? I'm not so sure. And the price of oil is not going to stay low until the end of time. I mean, we've seen the emerging markets currencies go down before in 0809 and then come roaring back. I mean, the Singapore dollar went down to 60 cents and then now it's back at 80 cents where it basically has its peg to a basket of currencies. I mean, so these emerging market currencies can't stay in the doldrums forever. But if you're looking for a residency, and now's your time, it's basically on sale here in Malaysia, and it's on sale in other countries that denominate their residency deposits or startup capital amounts in some kind of foreign currency that's in the dumps right now. You don't always have this opportunity, in every country. Hungary, for instance, has a residency program, and Hungary has a total disaster of a currency called the forint. But typically, when they look at residency, they're denominating things in euros precisely because the government loves to screw with the currency in Hungary, and they know it's a piece of crap. And they say they want you to suffer from holding forints, but they don't want to have to price their stuff in forints, so they price it in euros. So even if you go to some countries where they denominate or where they do business in other currencies, in dumpy currencies, you may not get the benefits of that for a residency program. But in Malaysia, you do. Because you do have to put the money in ringgit, and right now the process is on sale. So I believe that the Malaysian My Second Home MM2H program is a very very good option. And one question I get asked a lot is, Andrew, where can I go and get a residency in Asia? And there just aren't that many options. I mean, we'll go over all the options in a later show, but I mean, there just aren't that many real residency options. Certainly, really not any that lead to citizenship, or at least easily. And so, the Americas and increasingly Europe, those are the places for easy residencies, citizenship. But if you just want to live in Asia, if you like Asia, Malaysia, I think, is a great place to be. If you like the big city, Kuala Lumpur is not the biggest city. It's not Hong Kong, but it's a big city. It's a capital city. You've got everything you need here. You've got fantastic travel around the region and lots of great stuff. If you like beaches, Langkawi, It's practically in Thailand. You've got all the benefits of Thailand. You're on your own little island in Langkawi. There's all kinds of stuff going on up there. Penang. There's so many great places that you could live in Malaysia to where, I know guys who are moving to Thailand and they're going all out of their way and tripping over themselves to try and get some kind of residency because the Thai government is a bunch of crazy freaks who's trying to kick every expat out. They're trying to, find what some guy running an internet business is making so that they can tax him. I mean, the Thai government is a total disaster. It's a mess. And so if you're looking at, okay, if you've always thought, hey, I want to move to Thailand, you should consider Malaysia. And, getting into Malaysia is very, very easy. The immigration process here is very open. In fact, you can come here from pretty much any country. Whenever we do passport research, we're always looking at, how good is a passport? Where can the passport holders go visa-free? And pretty much every passport we look at, you can go to Malaysia for at least 30 days and usually 90 days, visa-free. You just show up, present your passport. Anytime I see a passport that doesn't have visa-free access to Malaysia, I'm like, wow, this is a really horrible passport. Because Malaysia is very open to almost anyone. So you could come here, you could come to Malaysia and just do visa runs in and out. Come for 2 months, leave, go to Singapore for the weekend, come back. Spend another 2 months, 3 months, whatever. Go to Bangkok for a week, or go to Cambodia for a week, or go wherever. I mean, you can fly, like I said, you can fly to London from here. You could do that. You could be the perpetual traveler, and they really don't harass you or ask many questions. It's very, very open. But if you're looking for, like I said, for tax purposes, you need some kind of bona fide residence, you need an actual residence that you can prove, you need an address, or you just want to settle down, MM2H, you just need some liquid funds. That's all there is to it. If you're under 50, you need 500,000 ringgit in liquid funds. You need to be able to put 300,000 of that in the bank. So again, about 145,000 liquid, and 85,000 or so that you'd actually deposit in the bank. And by the way, if you want to leave, if after 2 years you're like, hey, I've had a tuchus full of this place, then you fill out a form and you get your money back. It's your money. You're not depositing it in the name of the government. You can't touch the money, but it is your money, and it's whenever you say, hey, I'm handing in my visa, it's a 10-year visa. Whenever you say I've had enough, you can cancel the thing at any time, and you get your deposit back. Of course, you get it back in ringgit, so if the ringgit goes up, then you make money. If it goes down, you lose. MM2H visa, and make sure to check out our article on nomadcapitalist.com if you want more details, not only on MM2H, but also on why I believe that Kuala Lumpur is a hidden gem for expats who want to live in Asia, and why I have set up one of my bases here. All right. One thing that we are going to be talking about, by the way, in a month. Can you believe it is now a month away? Some of you bought tickets to this thing almost a year ago. Passport to Freedom in Cancun. Yeah. Can you believe it? People actually bought tickets to this thing. They had no clue where it was going to be or when it was going to be. They said, people who came to the first event said, we loved it so much, sell us a ticket for next year. Wherever it is, we'll go. And so here we are. We're now a month away before we convene in Cancun on the beach. And if you're not going to be there, like I said, now time is really running out. If you don't have a ticket, you got to go to passporttofreedomevent.com. passporttofreedomevent.com. One of the things we're going to be talking about a lot is second residencies and, of course, second passports. We've got like 2 or 3 or 4 different guys who are going to be talking in some way about this stuff, including, I think, 2 very intense discussions on passports. And this is, by the way, if you come and you want to get like your Italian passport through your ancestry, you can do that. But we're not just going to recite the same old stuff that you can find on Google. There are going to be some new ideas, including stuff that I can pretty much assure you you've never heard of. And I'll let the speakers go into detail on that in person so they can explain all of it. But there will be new ideas for second residency, new ideas for second passports. Everything we're doing is fresh. Look, people are starting to copy us, and they're starting to copy all the different elements of our event, and that's fine. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, but what we're doing is fresh, and we're putting out information that you can't get at any other conference. We're not just going out there and picking the 12 guys who spoke at every other conference last year. This is new stuff and new information, and second residencies and passports are very, 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 very important. You see what's happening right now in the EU, where they're doing this new VAT tax on online sales, and it's like a whole accounting nightmare. And everyone who lives in the EU has to deal with this if they do business online. So whether you live in the US, whether you live in the EU, we've seen a lot of crazy stuff coming out of Australia. Really, no matter where you live, I mean, having a safe haven, having some insurance is a good thing to do. And you don't have to spend a lot of money. People think, well, you're just trying to cash in. No. Some of this, listen, if you come to the event, we're going to share. I for one, I know what I'll be sharing. I'm going to be talking about one residency option that you can do for like under $1,000. If you're willing to get on a plane, you can go there and you can bang it out like in a week for $1,000, and we'll be talking about that at the event. So this is not about me, cashing in. This is about what you need to do to protect yourself. Second residencies and second passports. Preferably the residency that leads to the passport. Although having two residencies, like one in Malaysia or one somewhere else that does lead to citizenship is a good strategy too. So if you want your tickets and you want to learn about that, we've also got some great alternative investments. If you're not making 20% a year, then this is something you need to come to. So, I mean, just imagine you invested $10,000 at 20% a year, you pay for your ticket. PassportToFreedomEvent.com. PassportToFreedomEvent.com. Not PassportToFreedom.com. PassportToFreedomEvent.com. See you in Cancun. It's 32 days away. Time is ticking. Jim Rickards will be there from The Death of Money and Currency Wars. And we will continue on the Nomad Capitalist Report. Stick with me.
The Woodstock of Offshore. Join us for Passport to Freedom in Cancun, January 2015. Reserve your seat at PassportToFreedomEvent.com.
No, man.
You will never believe the hoops these people wanted me to jump through. I'll tell you who it is next. I was just thinking during the break about how cheap things are here in Kuala Lumpur. Now, not everything's cheap here. You go to the mall, and a lot of these luxury goods, they slap a tariff on some of this stuff. So if you want to buy a Ferragamo bag, or if you want to buy a Burberry trench coat, then that kind of stuff is going to be more expensive, in some cases even double what you might pay in London or in Los Angeles or wherever else. But so many things are so cheap, and it's funny, I was at this Indian place that I was mentioning earlier, and I had this fantastic lunch. Sometimes I like to go to really nice places, and other times I just like to go to the other end of the spectrum and just eat at like places where the guy's in the back smoking with a cigarette in his mouth, and the ash is getting into the food, and just really gritty places, kind of salt of the earth places. And I was at this Indian place, kind of this street, this restaurant off the street, this local kind of Indian place. And 7 ringgit 70 cents for lunch, barely $2. And I go up to pay the bill, and I have a bottle of water that I brought, and the guy says, "Oh, it's 8 ringgit and 70 cents." I said, "No, I brought the water. I brought the water in." And the guy looks at me like I'm trying to rip him off or something for 28 cents or something. It's like, listen, dude, it's 28 cents. Does that ever happen to you? Where you go somewhere and people they accuse you of something? It's like, all right, you got me. This is my scam. I'm going around to all the Indian restaurants and ripping them off for bottles of water. I didn't know what to say, but you know what though? There's a part of me that just I wanted to pay it almost. Like if you would have persisted, I would have just paid it because, whether it's a scam or not, whether he legitimately thought that I bought the water there or not, there's a part of me that appreciates a good street hustle. I almost, you know what, not come to think of it, I almost wish he would have charged me for it. Because if his racket was ripping me off for 28 cents, I would have felt like God bless him. But that's just how cheap things are. That's all I can say. If you're living in the United States and you have the police kicking in your door and shooting your dog, what are you doing? All right. My 5 magic words, and I'm going to be talking about this in Cancun at Passport to Freedom, and I'm going to have my new 7 safe havens for 2015. You can find the last year's safe havens on YouTube or on our website, where I talked about 7 new countries that no one else is really talking about yet, that I believe are places that you should watch. Some for residency, some for citizenship, some for banking, some for gold storage, some for starting a company, whatever, just the whole gamut. 7 new countries that you should watch that aren't on the radar for most people. I'm going to be doing that in Cancun. But it all revolves around those 5 magic words, going where you're treated best. And you know, you listen to those 5, you say, okay, I get it. If banks, in the U.S. are a pain, I go to Hong Kong. All right, I get that part. I understand, But people don't understand, like, this is an entire life philosophy for me, and I think it should be for you too. I was looking at some tourist visa stuff for some countries I'm going to be at after the event. I'm going with some of our Nomad Society members down to Panama right after the event. I may pop into Belize. I'll probably be in Colombia, and I may go to Brazil for a couple days as well. But I'm looking at the requirements for getting into Brazil if you're a U.S. citizen, or if you want to use a U.S. passport to get in, and it is draconian. And I'm asking myself, like, Brazil is an interesting place. They have some stuff going on. Of course, the government's a corrupt mess. They have a lot of the problems on a much bigger scale, I think, than Malaysia does. Currency and just all of that. The commodities. Of course, they have the advantage of having agriculture and actually being able to feed themselves. But, Brazil has problems. And I'm looking at the requirements. If you're a U.S. citizen and you want to go to Brazil, you'll read this. I think that you would think you're going to the Soviet Union. Let me read you the requirements. This is from, where is this from? This is from one of these visa and passport services. Here are the requirements for U.S. citizens, and it starts with this. Brazilian consulates across the United States are no longer accepting visa applications by mail. Visa applications must be submitted in person by the applicant or by a third party, like a third-party passport processing service. So you may know, if you ever applied for a visa, maybe you've gone to China or something, you can go and you can if you don't live in Los Angeles or San Francisco or New York where they've got a consulate for that country, you can put your passport in a little FedEx envelope, fill out the form, and send it off, and then it comes back to you in a week or 2 weeks or whatever the case may be. And, it's relatively straightforward. It's a racket. It's stupid. But what are you going to do? So in Brazil, the U.S. government has ticked off Brazil so much that they've, first of all, said no U.S. citizens can come here without paying a huge fee or, like filling out forms. And now they're saying U.S. citizens can't even mail their passports in. They either have to walk it in, which means you have to live in one of like 3 or 4 cities, or you have to pay one of these passport service companies to walk it in for you. And they literally make you come in and stand in line. Someone has to come in like a bozo and stand in line holding your passport, like clinging to it, and waiting in line, like in a bread line, to turn in your passport and turn in your forms and grovel before the almighty Brazilian consular officers. So they're making it that hard to begin with. You can't mail it in. Here's what else you have to do if you're a U.S. citizen to go to Brazil. And this just shows, this is the tide turning against Americans. U.S. persons, as we call them on this show, are going to get worse and worse treatment, I believe, when it comes to traveling. Now, maybe it won't matter because 78% of Americans don't even have a passport. So maybe it won't matter. But if you're one of the people who does want to travel, you have to send in a Brazilian visa application form that you will sign, date, and send back. You have to send in your original U.S. passport with 6 months of remaining validity. So far, so good. one passport type photograph within the last 3 months. You must send a notarized copy of your driver's license or a notarized major utility bill, water, gas, electric, sewage, for the most recent month. Not last month, not 2 months ago, the most recent month. If it's 31 days old, screw you. And it must show the applicant's name and current address. Now, I do not have a utility bill with my name and current address. I am a perpetual traveler. I do have an apartment. It does not have my name on it. The utility bill is not in my name. So I'm already excluded. And by the way, I don't drive either. But it gets worse. The notary seal / certification statement and the copy document must all be printed on a single page. Don't get it on 2 pages, or you'll be kicked out on your behind. So you have to get your driver's license or a major utility bill notarized. Imagine what that notary's thinking. If you're walking in saying, "Hey, I got this power bill. If you can have me sign my power bill and you can stamp it and sign it saying it's me." Imagine what that notary, what kind of crackpot they must think you are going in and doing that. They must think you're like, forget going to Brazil, they probably think you're going to Mars. But it gets worse. You also need to send a photocopy of round-trip air tickets or a letter by a travel agent, which has become like the new phone book, by the way. Does anyone under like 40 know what a travel agent is in the U.S.? A photocopy of your tickets or a letter by a travel agent with confirmed round-trip tickets. Itinerary is not acceptable. So if you're traveling, you have to literally you have to print out air tickets, take a picture of them, and send it in. If you're traveling by land, you also must show a ticketed flight itinerary showing flights in and out of the region, a letter addressed to the Consulate of Brazil visa section explaining exactly how, when, and where you will be entering and leaving Brazil, as well as any women you plan on seducing while there. I added that part. And a copy of your most recent monthly bank statement. If you be entering by sea, 1 if by land, 2 if by sea. If you be entering by sea, you must also submit an official receipt or boarding pass from the cruise line and showing that the balance has been paid in full, as well as an official daily port itinerary from the cruise line listing the applicant as a passenger and showing the port location for each day of the... Holy Christ, I can't take it already! But there's more. If you're attending a conference or a seminar, a letter of invitation from the organization in Brazil is required, which shows a day-by-day itinerary of the event. So if you're like attending like a Satanist seminar, you have to send in day by day, first day, cutting the heads off of chickens. It's insane. Oh, by the way, there's one more thing. Bank statement. You also have to send a copy of the applicant's most recent monthly bank statement showing proof of sufficient funds, at least $100 per day. The statement must clearly show the applicant's name as the account holder, the balances of the account, and the dates of the statement. And if you're planning on bringing a minor, they need 2 notarized copies of their birth certificate, 2 notarized copies of letters of consent signed by both parents, only from the Atlanta consulate, by the way. Don't go to the other consulates. You also need a notarized application form signed by both parents, a polio vaccine, a certificate of vaccination against polio, or a notarized letter from the child's physician. And then on top of that, you must pay a $160 embassy fee, a $59 service fee, and I can't take it. Who goes through all these hoops? I'm taking my own... I wanted to go to Brazil because I think it's a fantastic country, and we just put up an article, actually, 2 articles, in the Nomad Society about Brazilian residency, talking about second residencies. You can get residency in Brazil through an investment. It's not that hard. It's not that expensive. You can also get citizenship in Brazil if you marry a Brazilian or have a Brazilian child. If you give birth to a child in Brazil, they instantly become Brazilian, which is kind of cool. We talked about that on nomadcapitalist.com in our birth tourism article, where we listed 29 countries. So there's a lot of opportunities in Brazil for citizenship and residency. But just to go there, if you're in America, who is going through this? This is like what Belarus does. This is what countries who just want to F with you do. Is at least, all right, at least the visa is good for 1,825 days. Hold on, let me just calculate. Is that 5 years? All right, it's good for 5 years. So when you go through all that and you send in your, your life's work, then at least you can go there for 5 years. But who's doing this? I'm going to stick to going to Colombia. I'll be in Panama. I will not be going to Brazil. Now, of course, if you're not a U.S. person, you don't have to go through all that nonsense. But it does give you some insight. It's very interesting because it gives you some insight into exactly what the rest of the world has to do to get into places like the land of the free. Did you know, for instance, that Poland, Hong Kong, Romania, those are just 3 countries, for instance. Uruguay. There's all these countries. There are all these countries that you would think are very wealthy countries, people who would be able to go to the United States as tourists, who have to go, and they have to go through procedures that are much worse than this to apply for a tourist visa. And so it really goes to show, as much as Brazil is ridiculous, and I doubt I will be traveling there under these conditions, that this is what countries like the U.S. do to people. You want to go to the U.S. as a tourist, you have to go and do an interview with one of these thugs at the consulate. It's ridiculous. But it does put it into perspective, why you need a second passport, why you need a second residency. If you have a South American second residency, or actually a citizenship, you can get in and out of Brazil, no problem. Just use that passport. If you're someone like me who prefers Europe and Asia, then you may have to go through the nonsense. But it goes to show that when you're looking for a residency, looking for a passport, find one that gives you the stuff you need. If you need to get into the U.S. and you're planning on renouncing your current citizenship, you're going to have trouble. Because there aren't that many countries out there that are affordable and easy to get into and easy to get citizenship in that let you into the U.S. Or Canada for that reason. But these are just the things you need to consider when you're looking at the residency and citizenship process. And if you're planning on having a child, or if you're in the process of having a child, then definitely consider Brazil as well. All right. One other article this week, big stuff we put up on nomadcapitalist.com. The madness in the EU continues. The European Union has this whole new thing coming out in January. We're almost there. Where every business pretty much on Earth is going to be responsible for documenting where their buyers of digital products come from. This is the kind of thing that you would only think would originate in the United States. This is the kind of fakakta nonsense they dream up in the U.S. Congress. But the EU, they have some heft as well. They have the ability to push some people around, and they are now jumping on the bandwagon with this new VAT overhaul. Here's how it used to work. Every country in the EU has a different VAT. So, for example, Switzerland, which is not in the EU, of course, Switzerland has an 8% VAT, very low. Value-added tax, it's not a lot. It's basically a sales tax in the United States. But some of these European countries, they really go for the gusto. 27% in Hungary, a lot of countries 20, 24%, even some of the Eastern European countries that have very low income tax or flat taxes have VATs of 22, 24%. And this basically it's just a tax basically on every layer of a transaction. And what companies would do is they'd say, all right, we want our customers to pay a lower VAT. And that way we can get more business, we'll have a competitive advantage, we'll go where we're treated best. We'll go to Luxembourg, for example, where the VAT is, I believe, 15%. And so a company could go and they could set up shop in Luxembourg, and they could save themselves and their customers 12% in every transaction, just by being in Luxembourg. And they could sell to customers who lived in Budapest, for instance, and they would have a 12% advantage over a local Hungarian company selling stuff online. Well, the rules are now changing. Just as Ireland got bullied into getting rid of its double Irish tax provision, all these tech companies, Apple, Google, all those companies use the double Irish Dutch sandwich, where they moved money from Ireland to the Netherlands, back to Ireland, and then to Bermuda. Ireland's gotten away with they've gotten rid of that. The EU bullied them to get rid of that. Now the EU is basically bullying the countries that have tried to be competitive in terms of their VAT levels. And they've said, listen, it doesn't matter where your company's based, we know the scam. You're now going to have to pay VAT based on where your customer is, and we're going to make you determine just where that customer is. We're going to make you track IP addresses. We're going to make you track pretty much anything you can to ascertain where is that customer really. So if someone buys your product and they have a Hungarian IP address, then that meets one of the couple of criteria for you to say, hey, you're in Hungary, we're charging you 27%, and then we are going to be responsible for remitting the 27% to the Hungarian thieves. Oh, you're in France, we're going to withhold the French amount and send it to the French thieves. Every company now, not just the companies in the EU, but anyone technically who's selling to a person who's in the European Union is now responsible, coming January 1st, for collecting and paying and knowing what to collect and pay to the proper authority. And it's just the latest step in making business difficult, because first of all, there's no limit on how small or how large your business is. You can be a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad or a part-time, whatever, selling ebooks for $5. And now you have to go through this complicated tax web to make sure you're paying all the right VAT. So there's no lower limit on sales. Everyone's responsible to comply with this, or else. And it's going to make business much, much, much more difficult. And I've always said there's going to come a time when you just don't want to market to people in the European Union. The same way that I believe there will come a time when businesses will say it's not worth doing business in California because we're tired of catering our entire business model to one jurisdiction that wants to shift its weight around. We're tired of not being able to have plastic bags with regular plastic. We're tired of having to produce these in eco bags just to cater to California. We're tired of having to cater to this in the European Union or that in France or in Spain. Or there's going to come a time when businesses do the same thing that I'm talking about. They go where they're treated best and they say, screw you, Spain. You're a bankrupt dump and we don't want to comply with your laws anymore. This is where I think things are going. And this is why I follow investors from China. I follow investors from the Middle East increasingly. And yes, a lot of those people want to live in Europe. They want to become citizens of Europe. They want to travel. They love the freedom that they see in Europe. But they don't want to pay the taxes. They know better in many cases than to stay out of, or than to get into that stuff. And this is why I'm following the emerging world, because the Western world has gone mad. To think that a guy who's in Hong Kong selling an ebook that's being downloaded in Italy has to build his business around reporting that to Italy and paying them and taking it's maddening. It really is. And we're going to talk more about a lot of tax strategies, legal strategies at Passport to Freedom. 32 days to go. Cancun, passport to freedomevent.com. It's the Nomad Capitalist Report. More on all of the Western world madness when I continue. Speaking of currencies and the declining Malaysian ringgit, I think one of the most fascinating things to watch in 2015 is going to be the yen and the dollar. Now, I think that the dollar has enough strength from the puppet masters that it will outperform what it should in 2015. The yen is an entirely other story, and I believe that we are going to see some fascinating currency wars coming up. Stay tuned to nomadcapitalist.com this week on the currency bets and the way I'm positioning myself with currencies for 2015. That's coming up. Also, Jim Rickards, who wrote The Death of Money, who wrote Currency Wars, 2 best-selling books. He's going to be joining me. We're doing a special webinar on Monday. It's going to be live. It's going to be one time only. It will not be repeated. There will be no replay. So if you're on the email list, you got an invitation already, and you'll probably get another one before Monday. I'm going to be asking Jim Rickards on Monday why he does not believe that there will be a Fed interest rate hike in 2015. I want to hear what he has to say about that, because I believe that the U.S. has painted itself into a corner no matter which way things go. It cannot possibly end well. But I want to hear what Jim Rickards has to say, why he believes there will be no interest rate hike in 2015. So if you're not on the email list, then you got to sign up now at nomadcapitalist.com. Get that invitation to join Jim Rickards and I for free. And of course, Jim Rickards will be in Cancun as our keynote speaker at Passport to Freedom. Everything's out of control. Everything's upside down. Commodities are falling apart. There's so much to talk about. We do it here every week. Thanks for being with us. Nomadcapitalist.com for all the latest free intelligence. And we will see you next week.